Well, hello hyperspace, my name is Davontos and it's time to get hyped because this is a handy dandy tips and tricks video for Infinite Warfare. And we're actually going to be talking about some of the weapon variants and why some of the epic weapon variants aren't as epic as you think they are. So, we're actually going to use the Raw because he's a very popular candidate. Everybody knows the Raw. It's a very powerful MG, has kind of a slow fire rate, moderate recoil, basically your standard MG. Slow movement, high power, medium recoil, so on and so forth. It's, well, really reliable. This is your base model. Nothing special about it. The one that everyone's really after is the very expensive model, this one right here, the Raw Liberty. Now the Liberty has double the magazine size. That is insane. And it also has faster movement. Now let's stop and think for a second. The standard, the one I showed you before this, the regular Raw model, has a 70 bullet capacity, and that means the Liberty doubles that to, what is it, 140? And let's think about this logically. When are you actually going to waste all 70 bullets in your default magazine on 1 or 2 targets? And on top of that, the Raw's reload isn't really that long. It's just like a 3-second reload. So, right there, the odds of you emptying all 140 bullets, even if you're playing ground war and you happen to see all of the enemies in one spot, the chances of you wasting all 140 bullets on just the 9 enemies is very, very slim. You can do that with just a standard 70 bullet magazine. And of course the faster movement can come in handy, but keep in mind it's slightly increased movement speed, not handling speed, movement speed, which means the gun is still going to handle very, very slowly, just your movement speed will be slightly increased. And if you think about it, are you really going to be running around the place with an MG that still has slow handling? I don't really think the Liberty is the best option for the Raw, so let's actually move on to the Legendary variant. This one's not as expensive as the Liberty, but it's still kind of up there in prices. Now the Legendary has some pretty interesting traits. Now the first one allows you to grant a large bonus to your payload meter, assuming you kill every enemy on the enemy side. It has to be 3 enemies or more. If there are 2 enemies on the enemy side, this trait will not activate. So you have to have 3 or more in order for this to activate. Kill all 3 or kill any other one. If there's like 5, 6, kill all those, then you'll activate it and it'll grant a huge bonus to your payload meter. And then the second one is reduced recoil. Now the Raw, being an MG, has quite a bit of recoil, so that does really help out. And on top of that, this thing that allows you to fill up your payload meter comes in handy, especially if you have those longer charged payloads like Reapers, what am I talking about? Snaptick's little dual machine gun pistols, or especially if you're using the Claw or the Steel Dragon. Those things take forever to charge. So this is really, really handy. So right there, right off the bat, the Legendary Headhunter variant is already better than the epic Liberty variant, but it actually gets better than this. Let's actually move on to the other variants. Right here we have the Incision, and it's a rare, which means it's actually one of the cheapest ones you can purchase. Obviously not purchase with real money, purchase with salvage. But I mean, the Incision is actually really good. This variant of the Raw allows your energy shots to now penetrate through the wall. So how this works is, when you shoot an energy weapon, it bounces off the wall, and then the next wall it hits, it disappears, assuming it's a default, uncustomized energy shot. With this variant, the Incision, it will penetrate the first wall, hit the second, and then bounce off of that. It's the same thing if it penetrates and goes through a person. Usually energy shots would just hit the person and disappear, or maybe hit the person and bounce off if it's customized. This one will go through the first guy, hits whatever behind him, and then bounce off. So you can probably hit one guy with the same bullet 2 times if you get the angle right. So right there, the Incision is very, very handy just with that first trait. And the second trait is increased damage to score streaks. Now let's actually think about this again, think about it logically. What is the gun you want to use to shoot down score streaks? Most people tend to use MGs. So right here you have a very reliable MG with some funky bullet physics that work in your favor, alongside increased damage towards score streaks. So right now, the Incision is sounding really, really good, much better than the epic Liberty variant. And finally, the last one here is the Repeater, which means headshots will refill your magazine. Now that's really, really powerful, especially if you're those kind of guys who aim for headshots. You basically never have to reload, because no, you still have the 70 mag capacity, and I mean, one of those 70 bullets is going to be a headshot. So you basically never have to reload with this thing, if you're good. And on top of that, you have increased ammo, which I believe it goes from the default 70, and I think this one brings it up to 80 or 85? I'm not too sure, but for whatever reason, more bullets for you, a higher chance of you landing a headshots. So right off the bat, at least in my opinion, the two rare variants, the Incision and the Repeater, are actually much better than that very expensive Liberty version. And that's something I see a lot of people not really paying attention to. I see everybody, they want the very expensive Epic version because, well, it's the Epic one and it looks cool, but it's not really about the looks, it's how the gun functions out in the battlefield. And a very, very popular one here is the Titan. Now, the Titan is the last MG you unlock, and I say it's actually one of the best MGs. It has very high damage and a very fast fire rate and very low recoil, but it's still an MG, so, you know, the handling ain't that great. So, right here, standard Titan. If you actually look at the Titan's ion sight, it's not that good. It's this little box, and then to the right of that little box is like this huge contraption, and when you ADS with the Titan, it basically blocks off that whole right side of your screen. It's not really the best MG to go with if you're not using any dot sights. Well, if you actually look at the Epic variant, which is the Scout. Now, the Scout has a built-in Trojan sight. That Trojan sight is actually built into that horrible ion sight, which means, yeah, you're going to have a Trojan, but your right side of the screen is still going to be blocked off by that big box. So what people would do is they would take the Titan, and then they would add, I don't know, a red dot sight, much like this. They just completely threw away the purpose of using the Titan Scout, because the Scout's power relies on that Trojan sight. But if you basically put your own Trojan sight, or if you just put a regular red dot sight, it completely defeats the purpose, and basically all you have is the second trait, which is, well, you see it right there, and it's not that great. So again, you might have to dig through a lot of your weapon variants and see which one is the best, because most of the time, not most of the time, just sometimes, the Epic weapon variants aren't as great as they seem to be. So make sure you go back and dig through your classes, and make sure you have a gun that actually benefits your playstyle. Don't use it just because it's the expensive Epic variant. It has to benefit to your playstyle, because as you've seen here, some of the Epic variants aren't really that epic at all. So if you like this video, punch that like button with a mighty force. You can follow me up on Twitter at DavontosMan, and as always, I'll see all of you in the next video. Have a nice day.